觉得做记者真的是可以去直面社会的黑暗，然后通过我们的努力可以去改变一些很多人的一些生存的状况。
Journalists in China would love to tell independent stories, would love to go out and investigate. They're not permitted. If they did, they'd be fired.
在进入人民网之后呢，确实比以前见到了更多黑暗的方面。但是呢，由于我们这个在体制内的这个新闻，它报道不出来。
Reconnect us and nourish us, O God.Tend to us and nurture us, we pray.
At this church in suburban Sydney, Wu Junmei is looking for comfort. The Reverend Bill Cruz offers welcoming words.
It doesn't matter if you're an unbeliever, and it doesn't matter if you've fallen 1,000 times. Come, whoever you are.
It reminds her of her church back in China, the one she joined to relieve the stress of her job as a journalist.
精神的压力越来越大，也去寻求一些帮助，后来加入了这个我们在武汉城市的一个基督教会的家庭教会，在这里面呢，确实感受了很多的温暖和解脱。只有在那个地方稍稍的能够感觉一些温暖。
But Junmei was soon told by her boss that her newfound faith was unacceptable.
就是说，我们这样的新闻单位只允许有马列主义新闻官，是不允许有其他的信仰。
For over 3 years, Junmei worked for the People's Daily, China's largest newspaper group. Like all media in China, the People's Daily is owned and operated by the country's ruling Communist Party.
人民日报湖北站的主编，那么他当时说过一句话让我印象特别的深刻，就是说我们的工作实际上是政治工作，一切都服从于政治的需要。
Journalists in China are expected to promote the government led by the Communist Party and its policies. Junmei's workplace sat right opposite some government offices. Outside, people would sometimes hold protests about issues like forced evictions and corruption.
那么我们有的时候看到这些，我们其实按照直觉来说，我们都会采一些图片，然后会去写报道。但是通常的话，现在在这种时候，如果是报道采写递上去的话，是很难批准的，一般都是刊发不出来的。
And Junmei says the censorship didn't stop at cases of civil unrest. She was also asked to use her investigative skills not to expose wrongdoings, but to cover them up.
人民网投诉平台就收到了一个楚源公司，他们在排污的这一块，这些化工的污水没有经过处理，通过他们自己私设的暗管排向长江。我们在调查的过程当中就了解到，他们的污水是剧毒的，这些污染严重的影响到周边人民生命安全。调查回来以后，这个写的这个报告，就递交给领导，然后这个呢，却被我们人民网跟这个企业去接触，最后的结果就是他们会以每年50万这样的金额来投向人民网湖北频道，而这一个违法的事件，基本上就被掩盖下来。
Each month, Junmei would receive a kind of commission for her involvement in extorting this revenue.
当然，你拿到这些钱的时候，你有可能会浮现你去调查的时候，某一个群众他非常非常痛苦的那种眼神，你就特别的沉重，你就会想怎么样去花这样的钱。
China is reaching out globally. There's a sense within China that its story is not being well told abroad. And in a sense, it's trying to export this model in which journalists do what they're told.
Professor John Fitzgerald says we should all be keeping a close eye on the workings of Chinese state media, and for good reason. A number of our own media outlets have recently signed deals with Chinese media organisations. They range from content sharing and distribution agreements to pledges to illuminate the bilateral relationship.
When mainstream, respectable Australian media platforms enter into agreements with China, they're basically saying that the Chinese media are equivalent, that they too are free and independent, critical voices, able to comment on government and politics of the day. They're not. So these agreements, in effect, lend credibility to a system which has none. And I think Australian media platforms should think about that as well.
This here's the goddess of democracy that was on Tiananmen Square. And I often look at her, you know, and I think it's so sad what happened.
Since being in Australia, June May has been learning a new version of her country's recent past.
这些被屏蔽的历史，我们小学、中学里面的历史里面都空白的这一段。
Having spoken publicly about censorship and corruption and the pressure she faced as a Christian, June May is not sure she can return to China. She's left behind her husband and ageing parents. She avoids telling them too much.
我倒是宁愿希望他们什么都不知道，那么我想他们就不会对他们怎么样吧。
June May has this message for those wanting to collaborate with Chinese media outlets.
中国的官媒去跟澳洲的本地媒体的这种合作，其实就是一种目的，用文化的目的做思想的渗透。